We've seen a memo come out this week. We've seen several memos come out from the NFL office, but the strongest one came out this week saying that we could forfeit games if you go against protocol.
Wow.
I think they should take that could out and say we are going to make you forfeit games if you go against protocol, because you know the protocol.
Hey, it's the Elliot and Rod cast, week 5, the game day. First ballot Hall of Famer Rod Woodson. You see his handsome face right there. Lots of cologne. Probably Jerkar would be my guess. Rod, what's up?
What's happening, man? What's going on with you?
I tried to do the button-up thing that you've got going. That's become like the new look. And I look like a total nerd. Not that I look better now with my Swayze do.
Remember, old school always comes back, right? All this stuff that we used to do when we were younger. So back in the day, we always had button-up. We always wore the button-ups. And now it comes back into fashion. You know, I'm waiting for the bell-bottoms to come back.
I didn't do that when I was younger. I didn't button it up all the way. I did have these shorts though called jams. They had like floral patterns and stuff, and they went down to your knees in the 80s. Maybe you weren't wearing those at Purdue.
We didn't have those in Indiana.
Well, I've got a lot more important news to discuss than jams and other clothes in the 80s. Week 5 is entered the surreal, Rod, I think is the best way to put it. I was talking with you off camera about how I'm always nervous talking about COVID and the pandemic. And I think it's because, number one, it's a negative topic. And number two, things are always changing, right? And so we never seem to have like a grasp. It makes it difficult. And I think the whole league is trying to adjust to it right now. The latest news that we have, that a couple more Titans players have tested positive. Right now, Bills Titans is up in the air. Remember, the Titans already owe a game with Pittsburgh. So that really throws the schedule off, to say the least. And this has got to be a really tough thing to manage for Mike Vrabel, the Titans head coach. Stephon Gilmore tested positive. With the Patriots, Cam Newton tested positive last week, and we saw them play against Kansas City with Bobby Hoyer. Future podcast Elliot here. It's Brian Hoyer. I don't know what I was thinking. If I had some cool rewind effect or something, I would do it, but I don't have the capability. And I guess, first of all, let me ask you as a former player, do you just show up when they tell you, or is this kind of thing stressful?
Well, it is what it is. You can't worry about the things that you can't really control. I think the main thing for me when you're looking at this whole, the COVID with sports, we saw the NBA basketball, which is still being played right now. They're in a bubble. All right. Hockey was in a bubble. Baseball, when it first started, it had a lot of positive tests. They had games postponed and moved, right? Now football, 3 weeks into it, got the positive test. Because you remember, they were quarantined. They were in a bubble because they were in training camp. Now 3 weeks removed, they're out of that bubble. People are interacting with each other. And now we got some positive tests by the Tennessee Titans. Now you have to remember, we've seen a memo come out this week. We've seen several memos come out from the NFL office, but the strongest one came out this week saying that we could forfeit games if you go against protocol.
Wow.
I think they should take that could out and say we are going to make you forfeit games if you go against protocol, because you know the protocol. Everybody knows the protocol. You know where you can and cannot be. You know how you have to social distance. You know that not only from the NFL rule standpoint, but by each state that you're in has these different protocols. Yes. And the teams that go against that, they should forfeit the game. Once you do that, you let the NFL office say, Tennessee Titans, this game is gone. You forfeited, you lose. We're going to give that victory to the Bills. You're going to tell me the owner for the Tennessee Titans won't come down into that locker room and talk to Mike Vrabel and talk to the players and say, you do that again? I'm firing some people in here with cause. And that means that guaranteed money you're supposed to get, not going to get. So you better hit them where it hurts. I just think, guys need to grow up. I know everybody everybody wants to get out. Everybody wants to have the world back to normal, but it's still not normal. So do what you're supposed to do. to have your job secure?
I don't disagree with anything you just said. Look, we've already seen it with the coaches, right? They got harsher about that. Isn't this just the kind of the next thing down the line, right? Just to make sure that you handle your business. Isn't that really what we're talking about? Handling your business. It's a big game, though. Tennessee's 3-0, Buffalo's 4-0. We're talking about major playoff implications down the line. That's the one thing about the NFL that makes it so great. You can't say a Week 5 game is meaningless. This isn't like a May MLB game. Right. These games are really going to count, especially these two teams. Kansas City, by the way, their line is suspended, or there's no line right now from Vegas. They're playing the Raiders, presumably because the Chiefs players are going to need to be tested and the protocols there. But going back to Tennessee, Buffalo, you don't want to see any more games like this be suspended or postponed or forfeited by teams not doing and organizations not doing what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, I mean, I live in Vegas, and some of the Vegas players went to a function, didn't have masks on. They got fined by the NFL office. And they shouldn't only get fined by the NFL office, but Mark Davis should come down there, and it was some of their leaders should go down to that locker room and say, dude, you do it again, I'm going to fine you. I'm going to fine you way more than what they fine you. So to me is you got to be a pro. And this is not a perfect situation for anybody, obviously, this COVID. But, you're playing in a game that you're still getting paid millions of dollars where people are suffering today. And you're not doing what you're supposed to do. It's hard for me to swallow that one. I mean, I will be very tough on people. Normally, I'm very lenient with people. But with that, I think you have to come down very hard. They need to start taking away games. They need to start suspending players and coaches. And once they do that, the very first time, everybody else is going to fall in line.
Yeah, I just want to specify two things here. Number one, we're recording this on Wednesday. As I said, this is a difficult topic because it's ever changing. The second thing is, I think we both can bear in mind, you always want to keep in mind that it's accidental. Like, no one's out there trying to get this. And I certainly can commiserate with someone who, came in contact with the virus, accidentally. And now they're going to have to miss time, and now they have to worry about their health. I think what we're talking about is when you know what the rules are and you know what you're supposed to do, if you're not doing it, like the function that you just talked about, then it becomes a different issue.
Yeah, like breaking the protocol that's been set in front of you by the National Football League. The Tennessee Titans players tested positive, and they weren't out practice that week when they wasn't supposed to go out and practice. That's breaking protocol. And you have two more guys test positive, which I don't know if they were at that practice or not, but two more players tested positive. So that's what I'm saying. It's like you break protocol, and when you break protocol, you test positive because of that. I got issues with that. I mean, obviously, you go to the store, you don't know who you're around, whatever it might be. You got kids. If you got kids in school, you just don't know those things. But I'm talking about only the players who are breaking protocol. Those are the ones that have to come down hard on.
Right, because at the end of the day, you need to control what you can control. And there are things that you can't control, everything that you're going to be exposed to, but you can certainly make it a lot harder to have something like this happen. And that's what these rules are for. Just like with the coaches, with the masks, make it harder for something like this to happen. Either way, like we said, it's a big game. There's no line on Raiders Chiefs right now. And then Bills Titans, we don't know if that game's even going to be played. And of course, the Titans and Steelers already had a game postponed. So that's kind of your update there. Outside of COVID news, some interesting NFL news, particularly at quarterback. So the Washington football team benched Dwayne Haskins. They're going to start Kyle Allen, Rod. I think a lot of people will be interested about that because, Alex Smith came back. And then also Haskins, are they already giving up on him at this stage? What do you think of that?
First of all, they're not a great team right now, right? They don't have a great set of running backs. They don't have a great set of skilled players. I mean, they're still building, right? And I believe And, that organization, I believe in the head coach, Jack Del Rio, the defense coordinator, I believe in those guys, right? But guys can only learn a certain way. And normally you only can learn through the fire. Well, they just said the fire was too hot and we got to we got to sit you down and bring somebody else in. And I get where, and we said this, weeks ago, that quarterbacks are going to get the blunt end of the credit when they win, and they're going to get the blunt end of the blame when they lose. And that's what's happening. They haven't lost all the games because of Dwayne Haskins. That's not the reason. It's unfortunate that they're sitting him down, but hopefully he'll learn. Hopefully he can sit back and reflect and say, you know what, I did this, I did this, I did this. And if I was him, I would be in Alex Smith's hip pocket, because Alex Smith is one thing I can't say about him. He's a winner. He's always won, and he's always taking care of the football.
Yep.
When he was playing. So I would ask him, how did he do it? What did he study? How did he study? I would learn from that, because he's been a winner. He was a winner, in San Fran. He was let's go back to Fresno. He was a winner at Fresno. He was a winner at San Fran. He was a winner at Kansas City. And then he comes over there, and he was winning there. So he's a winner. So if I was Dwayne, the one thing I would do is get into Alex Smith's hip pocket and ask him a lot of questions.
I was just pulling up over here Kyle Allen's numbers. I was curious how many games that he started last year. He played when Cam was hurt. He went 5-7 as a starter. He threw 17 touchdowns, 16 interceptions. Not awful. A guy that's being thrust in the lineup as a second-year player, that's not terrible.
That is awful, though.
Oh, it's not awful.
If you match your interceptions, how many touchdowns?
17 to 16. It's not awful. I've seen way worse than that. Come on. Interestingly enough,
how many games did he play? He played 7 games.
No, 12.
He played 12. Okay, 12.
So 16 picks in 12 games is not good, but it's not horrific. We've seen horrific. That's not horrific. He did lead the NFL, however, in sack yardage taken. He was sacked 46 times for 397 yards in losses, and that led the NFL. He'll be playing for Washington. Not too far away in the country, we see Sam Darnold not playing this week and Joe Flacco playing for the Jets. And you're over here giggling.
Did you say Neil O'Donnell's playing for the Jets?
Yeah, Neil O'Donnell is playing for the Jets. And maybe we'll see some Glenn Foley. Maybe. I don't know. No. But, Joe Flacco at this point, do you think he can give them a lift, or?
That
just answered it.
I'm just stunned by how bad they've become.
Yes.
It's kind of just sad to see. You look in, especially this year, you look at the, New York Giants, you look at the New York Jets, one of the biggest cities in the U.S. The league office is in New York, and neither team plays the way you want to see a championship team plays that represents that state, and the league office is right there. So I'm a little disappointed in that, but, can Joe Flacco help? Joe Flacco's a vet. He maybe he can take care of the football, but they need a lot of help. They need a lot of help.
They do.
They need a lot of help on defense. It's going to be a couple years for that team to turn it around.
Yeah, just looking at the Jets, of course they're 0-4, but it's been ugly. They're averaging 16.3 points per game. They're allowing 32.8. So they're getting beat on average 33-16 every single week. Another thing that's not interesting about this team. So Sam Darnold was averaging 5.7 yards per attempt, which is a terrible number. Joe Flacco's best quality, I've always thought, has been his deep ball. I've always thought he's been able to throw the vertical ball well. I don't know how much that this offense has that dimension and how much he's going to be able to do that with this group of guys, because you throw the deep ball, Rod, you got to take 7-step drops. You take 7-step drops, you got to have protection, so it's,
right.
Darnold already been sacked 12 times this year. So it's a tough road in New York. And by the way, we're going to get to the Giants soon enough when we get to our game pick section. I wanted to also ask you about J.J. Watt. He says he has no ill will towards Bill O'Brien. to me, this is not a major story or anything. Did you ever have a situation yourself like this, either where a guy got fired or you thought he was going, you hate to see these kinds of things. Like, can a guy just get fired and let's not talk about it anymore? Let's not pile on. What do you make of this?
Well, I mean, they just said, him and Anthony Weaver, the defense coordinator, and J.J. Watt got in kind of a heated exchange on the field in practice. I've seen it.
Happens all the time.
It happens all the time.
Happen all the time?
It happened to me. I mean, I got in a heated exchange with one of my coaches before. John Fox was a rookie green coach in Pittsburgh, cussing everybody out, cussed me out during practice. And, I didn't like it. I just told him, hey, you don't have to cuss me out. Just talk to me. And he did it again. And then he did it again. And then I finally went off on him. And, it was the end of it, though. And now Johnny and I are we're good friends. But it happens all the time. And the only reason people don't hear about it because it normally stays in house, right? So Bill O'Brien is no longer a Texan. So, whoever leaked it out. And I'm pretty sure, JJ, there's no reason to be mad at him. The team just hasn't played well. And it's defense who has not lived up to expectations. And the offense, they just don't have the weapons they had before. Well, I can't say they have some weapons. They just don't have D-Hop. And D-Hop was like that. I mean, he was the gas that made that car run.
Yeah, it's the glue to that offense.
Yeah.
What year was that John Fox would have been an assistant in Pittsburgh?
That would be
Approx.
89-ish.
89.
Right after Tony Dungy left.
Okay. Yeah, so in 88, 89, you had that mustache with the gelled hair. Maybe that's what he was really yelling at you about, because I remember that look.
That was a sweet hair. That was a sweet hairdo. He liked the hairdo. He liked the mustache. He just didn't like me not running on a tarp.
Out there freelancing?
No, he wanted me to. We shared a stadium with the Pirates. The Pirates already had the tarp on the outfield. Well, Bubby Brister, being the guy that he would be, he would throw the ball all the way on the tarp. Well, the receivers would run on the tarp. I'm like, I'm not running on the tarp. You can run on the tarp. If with no tarp there, I would cover you all the way past that. But there's a tarp. I'm stopping on the tarp because if you slip, you're gonna get hurt. So I would stop at the tarp, and John didn't want to hear that. He didn't want to see that. He used to cuss me out. You finish it, and then eventually we just had to have a man-to-man talk.
Well, Bubby Brister, that Bubby Brister era of the late 80s Pittsburgh Steelers, I remembered fondly. Okay, boy, we brought this full circle because you asked if Neil Donnell was a backup with the Jets, and you know who put Bubby Brister on the bench? Neil O'Donnell.
That's
interestingly enough. Speaking of being on the bench, Thursday Night Football, Tampa Bay's got quite a few guys that are sidelined right now. The opening line on this game is Tampa Bay at Chicago. Tampa Bay is 3.5-point favorites in this game. The over-under is 44.5. That's a very low over-under typically, although for this game, I'm not so sure. But the guys, I'm just checking my notes here. Chris Godwin's out. Leonard Fournette's doubtful. O.J. Howard is already out. LaShawn McCoy is also out. I was thinking, who else is also out for them? You look at Ronald Jones.
Barner's out too for PD.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So you look at Ronald Jones. He's going to have to do it all himself, which is fine. He's supposed to be that back for them. But Rod, I have watched their games, and I think he dropped 3 passes in the first half against the Chargers alone. And that was the concern about him coming into the season. He was supposed to catch a ton of passes in that offense, but he was dropping balls. You can't bench him, and you know how much Tom Brady likes to go to his tight ends and his running backs. But you got Godwin out. Mike Evans, by the way.
Gronk came out of retirement.
Okay. They've been trying to get the ball to Gronk. It hasn't been successful when they've tried. It's not that he's been dropping it. It's just been covered. He had one big catch downfield last week. Great catch, I might add. Okay. Mike Evans was limping around on a bad foot last game. So this Bucs offense may not be what we saw in the last couple of weeks. Do you see Tampa Bay still going in and blowing out Chicago, or do you think this is going to be an ugly, 17-13, 2017 game?
I mean, Khalil Mack is questionable, but if Khalil Mack and Akeem Hicks, if those guys play and, Tom Brady doesn't have all his weapons and they can't be consistently good at running the football. So if you can run the ball, that slows the defensive line down. If you can't do that, that can be a long day for Tom Brady. So I still think the Bucs will win. I think they have the best overall team, but if you can't help Tom in some capacity with, the running game, and you have a solid front like the Bears, they do have a solid front. Their defense is not a bad defense.
Yeah.
Even though Pagano's a different play caller than Vic used to be when he was there,
Vic Fangio. Yeah,
they still have players there that can cause havoc for an opposing quarterback. So if to me, it's all about the running game. If they can't get the running game going, it's gonna be a long day for Tom Brady. And I could see where the Chicago Bears, even though they don't score a lot of points, they could win this game.
The Bears last week rushed for 28 yards. 28 yards. They went to Foles, and I think I said to you last week that John Madden used to have a saying that if you've got two quarterbacks, you've got none. And we saw that with the Bears. And I told you before that game, I said, Foles is a good long reliever, but I don't know that he's a great starter for a prolonged amount of time. Now, I want to have faith in him because he has proven people wrong, including myself multiple times. And I really like Nick Foles, to be frank. But I don't see Chicago winning this game. But at 3.5, could I see Chicago keeping it within a field goal? I could, Rod. What do you think about the 44.5 points? Do you think this game is higher scoring than that, or do you think that's right about where it's going to be?
No, I don't think. I think it's going to be a low scoring affair. I think it's going to be more like 17-14. With the Bucs coming out barely getting that victory. So I just don't think it's going to get up to that amount.
Yeah, the way I look at this game, if I had to, I don't want to bet on this game. I'll be frank. This is not one I'd really want to touch. However, if you said, no, I really want to bet on this game, I'll take the under. I think that 3.5 points is so close to where the score is going to be, like you do, but I could see this being 20-17, which is easily under 44.5. Right. To get to 44.5, it's got to be 24-21. And I don't know that these teams are going to put up those points. So there we go. Okay. Next game I got on my list here is Philadelphia at Pittsburgh. Real quick accounting work. Pittsburgh 7-point favorites. Another low over-under, Rod, 44. How do you see this game? Do you think Philadelphia has rebounded, or was that an anomaly the other night?
Well, first of all, it's the Battle of Pennsylvania, right? So the Battle of Pennsylvania, you got Philly and Pittsburgh, but Pittsburgh is a good football team this year. Ben, I think we've seen what Ben means to the Pittsburgh Steelers offense. Juju, and I've said this multiple times, Juju is not a number one, but he looks like a
really good number two.
But he looks like a number one now because he's running the routes that he needs to run with Ben. He'll run those deep over routes. He can get a little separation, and he's a big body receiver, so he can catch those contested catches. And that defense is still playing good football.
Yeah, so they are.
I think it's going to be hard for Philly to get a victory. My only thing for Pittsburgh, the one downside would be, can the running game continue? Can they continue that? If they can continue that and take that pressure off of Ben, always having to throw the football, then I think that will get an easy victory.
Yeah, the Steelers' rush defense is number one in the league right now. They are second in total yards allowed. They're fifth in points allowed. They're playing pretty well. Just looking at this team, you look at their schedule. Just going forward with the Steelers, and I really wonder what's going to happen. They had the Titans game that was postponed. Now they're going to be playing the Titans in a couple of weeks. They play Cleveland the week after this, which could be a huge game. We're going to get to Cleveland's game in a second. But after playing Cleveland, Tennessee, and Baltimore, Pittsburgh's at Dallas. Dallas has looked terrible, right? Cincinnati, Jacksonville. That could be 3 wins right there. The Steelers very well could be a 12-4 football team this year. And I didn't know that I thought they were that good heading into the season. Do you think there's any chance, however, just for argument's sake, that Philadelphia could sneak a win out here? They did in San Francisco.
It's hard for me to see that one. I mean, San Fran didn't play really good football.
No.
I mean, Mullins threw some terrible passes.
That interception late, right to the linebacker.
He was 10 feet in front of you. So, I don't see that happening. They would have to play their worst game of the year, and Philly would have to play their best game of the year for Philly to get this victory. But I just can't see that happening.
The line, like I said, the Steelers are favored by 7. The over-under is 44. My key number in this game, by the way, is 5.8. That's the yards per attempt Carson Wentz is getting. Before everyone blames Carson Wentz, just watching him against the Niners, the guy was running for his life in the first half. I mean, as soon as he got back to throw, Rod, he's shuffling his feet. He's moving around because he doesn't trust his line, and it's because they've had so many injuries. They lost Peters. They lost Lane Johnson. They lost one of their interior linemen. It's been really tough for him, and he's not getting a lot of help there. Do you think Philadelphia can keep this close? Because I don't want to touch the over-under at 44. Steelers are favored by a full touchdown. Do you think Pittsburgh covers that, or is this closer?
No, I think Pittsburgh is going to score about 27 points. I think Philly gets 17.
You know what? I'm with you on this one. I think the Steelers cover as well. It's tough. This is, again, not one that I'm in love with, but I'll ride with you on this. And so if you get it wrong, I'll blame you. Of course, I have Buffalo, Tennessee down on my list here. And I just want to mention one more time, this would have been one of the best games of the weekend. Right now it is, we're taping this on Wednesday, but right now it's up in the air. And it's a shame because the Bills are 4-0. And I really want to know if they could go 5-0 against what's I think the Titans are a playoff team.
They're a good team.
How real do you think these Bills are? Just putting this game aside, we've seen 4 weeks of it. The Raiders kept it somewhat close. Are the Bills the best team in the AFC East? I think yes. But where are they in terms of contending with the Chiefs in the AFC?
Well, I said this. We talked about this last week, and I talked about it. I think the Chiefs and the Ravens are up here. I think the Bills and the Steelers are right here together.
Second tier.
There's not that. I don't think there's a huge difference in the sense of 1A and 1B and 2A and 2B. I don't think there's a huge difference, and there's never is. Not in the National Football League. Winning by 3 points, winning by 10 points is huge in the National Football League. So I think they're legit. Josh Allen, a lot of people had a lot of question marks, how good he's going to be. I mean, because he didn't look great his rookie year, but he keeps progressing. He's throwing the long ball better. He's taking care of himself. He's not taking those big hits. He's not holding on to the ball excessive amount of time to get sacked. And the defense is playing good football. They make the plays they have to make. So you have to like a team like that. Now, I think the Steelers are a better overall team than the Bills because I think their defense is just so much better than the Bills' defense is right now. So I would probably put them in front of Buffalo. But until the Steelers can beat the Ravens, that's when my mind won't change until because it's Kansas City, it's Baltimore, it's the Steelers, it's the Bills. If the Steelers beat the Ravens in that first matchup, then my mind is starting to change a little bit because they're going to have to stop that running game, and right now they're stopping the running game.
Well, one thing as I push my Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker hairdo back that you don't like. With you look at your top 4 teams, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Roethlisberger, and Josh Allen, 3 out of those 4 quarterbacks are X factors because what they can do when things break down. Now, Roethlisberger used to be known for that, but it was always throwing the ball. It wasn't him taking off. I think that's an extra dimension that Pittsburgh doesn't have. Pittsburgh still has to win in a more conventional manner. Let's just call it that. So I think that's the difference. But I'm with you, and I definitely think Buffalo is part of that top 4. I'll tell you what, though, I don't think the discrepancy is that big, Rod, because Kansas City, they still struggled with New England. New England had opportunities in that game. Put the final score aside.
If New England had a quarterback that can decipher a defense faster, because we got that strip and then you got that pick. If they had a quarterback, if he could if obviously he hasn't had a lot of practice time, he hasn't had a lot of game time, which you need in the National Football League. But that was the weakness right there, because of that last drive when they got the strip. If they go down and get points, I mean, this game is right there. I mean, that pick six was right in Edelman's hands.
Yeah.
So this is a lot closer game than what it looked on the final score.
I think I called Brian Hoyer Bobby Hoyer earlier, and I think I was thinking of the legendary Bobby Hoying, who used to play for Philadelphia. I don't know if you remember Bobby Hoying, but you probably played against like 350 quarterbacks, so I'm sure you played against them. It's ridiculous.
Quite a few guys.
Yeah, you played 17 years, dude.
It happens.
Unbelievable. Speaking of playing 17 years, you know who else has played 17 years? I just realized it.
Who's that?
Philip Rivers. 17th year. That's my next game. Indy at Cleveland.
Yeah.
Line here, we've got Cleveland as a 1.5 underdog. The over-under is 47, so it's mediocre over-under. Indy's defense has played really well. Cleveland's defense has been meh. So, by the way, Colts passing defense, number 1 in the league coming into this game.
Yeah.
What's the matchup? Like, what's the most important thing that's going to determine the outcome of this game? This is a sneaky good game. Both teams have won 3 in a row.
Yeah, to me, this is about, you look at Cleveland, they're averaging 31 points a game. That's 4th in the National Football League. And the Indianapolis Colts defense is only giving up 14 points a game.
It's incredible. In this era, that's hard to do.
It really is. And I know it's only, it's early in the season. To me, it's about can Baker Mayfield get into the red zone, and can they score touchdowns with him? If they can't score touchdowns, because Chubb is gone, you still got to Hunt, yes. They got to be able to run the football. That's going to be
which they did last week. Yeah,
right. That's going to be the key, first of all, for them. And now they're only giving up 77 yards on the ground a game, talking about the Indianapolis Colts defense. And you can't name 4 of their starting defensive players. I don't think most people can. It's tough, but they play solid football. This is a well-coached football team. I think it's going to be a lot harder for Cleveland. I mean, everybody's, because who thought going into this week that the Cleveland Browns and the Indianapolis Colts are both going to be 3-1? If anybody
Not me.
Said that, if you'd have took that into the casino in the offseason, you would have been making some money.
It's a great point, because forget preseason. Well, we didn't have a preseason, but the prognostications. Cleveland looked awful week 1 against Baltimore, and the Colts had that weird game where they didn't punt and they lost. I think it was on a Rivers interception at the end of the game. Right. And you're like, oh boy, okay, that's the way the Colts are going to probably end up, maybe 7-9, maybe. And the Browns, people were probably thinking, boy, this has got, 4-12 written all over it. And now they're both 3-1. And now this game has playoff implications. Again, the line on this game, 1.5. They're giving Cleveland some points, hardly any though. Over under is 47. I actually like Indy to win this game on the road. Rod, I don't know that I love this game to bet on. The over-under at 47 actually feels right about where it should be. So if I were going to bet on this game, I would take Indy to cover that and to win by a field goal. What do you think?
Yeah, I believe Indy's going to win. I think it's going to be very close.
Me too.
I think it's going to be closer than a field goal. I think it's going to be more 21-20. I think it's going to be tough tougher for the Cleveland Browns to run the football the way they've been running it the first 4 weeks. This is a well-coached football team, talking about the Indianapolis Colts. And their defense takes a lot of pride. TJ Carey, my guys over there, he always talks about it. They take a lot of pride in doing what's right. And when you find teams like that, man, some good things can happen. You got an old wily, quarterback who's still scrappy. You got some playmakers still on that offense. And the defense, it's a no-name defense for the most part, but they play heck of a good football together.
Well, if the Browns are going to keep it that close, or if they're going to win the game, Baker Mayfield's going to have to do more. Last week, the Browns did put up 49 points, and Baker Mayfield threw for I want to say it was 165 yards last week. I'll take a look. It was not him. I'm not saying he played poorly. I'm just saying that, they had 306 yards rushing or 309 yards rushing. Yeah, they had that OBJ reverse at the end of the game. All the running backs played well. And Baker Mayfield, let's say, here we go. He was 19 of 30 for 165 yards. First of all, if you're throwing the ball 30 times, you should have more than 165 yards. That's a lot of dinks and dunks and none-yard outs. That's what that is. And little 3-yard slants. I call those Danny Amendola specials. I know Danny Amendola is not one of his receivers. I'm just saying that's what I call him. When you're throwing 5-yard slants all game, that's great. I think he's going to have to do more against the Colts. You already referenced how good their run defense has been playing. I like the Colts to win this game outright, and we will see. And they are favored by 1.5. So you actually have the Browns technically in the points because you said the Colts will only win by 1, right, and the spread is 1.5. So that's I'll have to watch that. All right, Giants at Cowboys. I didn't want to talk this game, and the producers that we work with, who they don't really do a whole lot, they just kind of sit there and muse over Zoom, and they said, guys, we got to talk Cowboys Giants. I mean, I'm trying to impersonate Steve with his wavy hair. He's like, we got to, it's a big market. People pay attention to the Cowboys. So here's our obligatory Cowboys chat. What do you think?
I mean,
Giants and Cowboys.
We talked about this a second ago about that one of the biggest cities in the United States of America, right? New York. The National Football League office is in New York. And the New York Giants and the New York Jets are not playing great football. Now, for the Giants, I can say they don't have their best weapon, right? So you lose Shaquan Barkley. He's not there anymore. They don't have that go-to guy, somebody to lean on. Your best other player is the tight end. Am I saying the tight end? I mean, or the quarterback is the. I mean, I'm trying to figure out they're what you get rid of. You just don't have all your pieces to the puzzle on the offensive side. Defensively, they've been playing okay football, not great. Dallas, you have a quarterback that throws for 450, then 450 and 502.
Yes. We need to have a talk about that.
This crazy numbers. Obviously I think the Dallas Cowboys are going to win the game. It's hard to talk positive when you talk about either one of those New York teams.
Their best weapon, to answer your question, Slayton, their receiver's got 236 yards in 4 games and 2 touchdowns. Their leading rusher is Daniel Jones, the quarterback.
Those are not called runs either now.
No.
Those are scrambles. That's different than Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson has some call pulls, just kind of like Cam Newton. These are true scrambles because he's trying to get out of the pocket. He has to get out of the pocket because he's not being protected.
I wanted to look up something for you that I found pretty funny. But don't you think the Giants have clearly outplayed the Jets at this point? I understand that they're both struggling, Rod, but the Giants have stayed competitive. They played Pittsburgh. I know Pittsburgh handled them, but it wasn't a blowout. Right. And they played they've stayed in football games. They played tough against Chicago. I'm thinking about the end of that game. The Jets have looked awful. So do you really think these teams are on par, or do you look at them differently?
No, I'm not saying that they're, equally as bad as each other. I'm just saying it's hard to speak positive when you do talk about either one of them. Now, I think the Jets have played much worse than the Giants. The Giants do show some fight. They do show some grit. You know, and it's unfortunate. It's just unfortunate that the New York Jets has kind of gone from, you know, because you love seeing one of those teams perform well, and the league benefits from when one of those teams perform well because it's one of the bigger cities and the bigger markets. So right now we just have to talk about the other teams they're playing against.
Yeah, well, the Cowboys are their opponent this week. The Cowboys defense looks awful. It's been a rough go so far for defensive coordinator Mike Nolan. And, you know, at this point, you and I talked on IG Live Sunday night, and I told you with Dak, I'm not placing blame on Dak. I'm merely saying that when people are pointing to these numbers and they're saying, oh my gosh, the guy's thrown for this many yards, he's on pace to literally throw for like 6,800 yards. So much of that is coming in games where the other team is up 2 or 3 scores. And it's not that they're just letting the Cowboys go down the field, but their goal is to not let the Cowboys get easy scores, right? That's the difference. So, you know, if you attack on defense and you blitz Dak and he gets away and he tosses a deep ball to Gallup or CeeDee Lamb, and now you just gave up a touchdown in 10 seconds, you're not going to do that. You're going to play back. You're going to play coverage. You're going to tackle them inside the numbers, make the clock roll so that the Cowboys eventually run out of time. But what that does is it inflates Dak's numbers. I know you know this, but it's I think sometimes because of the proliferation of fantasy, Rod, we look at this and we think that's success. And throwing for 5,500 yards and 45 touchdowns is not always, you know, reflective of success.
No, you're absolutely right. I think we have to reevaluate what greatness looks like. But I mean, he's thrown for a lot of yards. You know, it's not his fault that they're not winning games.
No,
right? I'm not going to blame him. If the Dallas Cowboys don't want to keep him after this year, then I'm pretty sure there's going to be some teams come calling that give him a good contract. So let's just say that. They have really good pieces to the puzzle. But you can't tell me that you have your quarterback in waiting for your franchise, talking about the Dallas Cowboys backup quarterback. Like, you can't say that that's your future, you know? So I think they have a lot to look at each other, you know, be it Dak wanting to stay there, if they can find a mutual agreement to have that contract being signed. If not, I know he will find a home somewhere else outside of Dallas. Dallas defense has played terrible, though. It's not
terrible.
You know, he's thrown for the gaudy numbers, which is at the end of the games, yes. But the defense has played this equally as bad. It feels like they play soft like that the whole game.
The whole game.
You know, and I hate saying that because I like Mike Nolan. I really do. I know Mike's a good coach. I do know that. And I do know there's a learning curve anytime you bring in a new system and you're learning it for the first time, how he's teaching it. And normally it takes you several weeks to learn. Well, they didn't have the preseason to learn this year. So everybody's learning on the run. But another problem I have is that the best player to me on that football team on the defensive side is Aldon Smith. And he hasn't played in 5 years. So if he can come in and look like he's looking, why can't the other guys who've been playing look even better?
Right. And it was actually Aldon Smith who got sucked in, didn't stay home on that reverse. I mean, he almost did. He made Odell Beckham take a wide turn. But then Jalen Smith, who they paid a lot of money, took a bad angle on Odell Beckham on that touchdown. And Cowboys fans have been complaining about not just Jalen Smith, but the whole defense. Mike Nolan did a heck of a job with the Saints linebackers under Dennis Allen. Remember, the Saints used to be this team that gave up all these points. Mm-hmm. Last couple of years, they've run the ball and played defense a lot more. Mike Nolan, I think, deserves credit for that. I wanted to give you some Cowboys defensive numbers before we get off this game. They're 32nd in points allowed. I'm sure that shocks you. By the way, there's 32 teams in the league. 36.5 points per game allowed. They are 30th in yards allowed right now, 30th in pass touchdowns allowed, 31st in rushing yards allowed. Here's their yardage allowed in the 4 games: 422, 380, 412, and 508. against Cleveland, it's bad all the way around. So getting back to the gambling part of this game, again, the line, the Cowboys are 10-point favorites, and the over-under is at 54. You know, Rod, for me, I don't think these teams hit 54 points. I know the Cowboys defense has played awful, but this is the Giants, okay? Dak's got CeeDee Lamb out there, right? He's got, Amari Cooper. He's got Ezekiel Elliott out there, and Daniel Jones has himself as the top rusher, and Darius Slayton is his top receiver. I don't know that these teams make it to 54 points.
I'm not with the over and under. Do they cover? Do they cover
10 points?
They're 10 points?
I don't like it. I stay away. I think
they cover. New York is traveling. They're going down to Dallas. Dallas we've known has played some terrible football. We know one thing. They can score points now.
Yeah.
They can score some points. Now, I'm not saying that the New York Giants defense is played like the Dallas defense, but, Dallas can score some points. I think they're going to put some points on the board. I think this is going to be a 37-21 game.
Wow. So you got the over. All right. I can't believe I'm taking the under with the Cowboys, but I'm going to take it and live with it. Maybe not. Maybe I just avoid this one altogether. I'm not confident about this one altogether. Minnesota at Seattle. Interesting game. Minnesota got back on track last week. Seattle, we talk about defense. Dude, their 4 games so far, 506 yards allowed, 464 allowed, 522 allowed, and 415 allowed. So the over-under on this game is 57.5. That is very high. Do you think Minnesota-Seattle ends up being a 30-29 game or no?
I mean, Seattle averages 35.5 points a game. Minnesota averages 26.5 points a game. That's right around there, right? So it's, neither defense has played great, right? So,
right.
Ken Norton Jr. was my defense coordinator when I was coaching with the Raiders, and we played that single high defense. It's a tough defense. If you don't have that front 4 pass rusher or pass rushers, talking plural, if you don't have multiple guys up front getting after the quarterback, there's a lot of holes in the back end. I don't care what type of defensive backs you have. I don't care what your linebackers look like, and their linebackers are aged. They're aging linebackers.
Mm-hmm.
They're not. These AJ Wright and all those guys, they're not, 21, 22 years old anymore. So they don't
That's right.
run the same as they used to run, 5, 6, 7 years ago. So I think it's going to be a tough matchup for Minnesota, even though I think they'll score some points. I just don't think they're going to slow the Seattle Seahawks down at all. I think the Seattle Seahawks are going to score their 35 to 37, 38 points.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think for Minnesota, I think they're going to be around 21 points, somewhere in that area. I don't think they'll get too much more than that.
Well, that's the over-under is right at 57.5. So you're basically calling it. Seattle's favored by 7. You like Seattle to win by more than 7 here?
I do have them winning by 7 or more than that.
Wow. I think I'm going to take the over on this. I think this is going to be 30-29. But too close for comfort on the line. I guess I could take Minnesota to in the points on this, but I don't trust the Vikings enough. I just don't trust them enough. So even if they get it real close, like 30-29, then I see Seattle getting another touchdown. So I'm going to avoid the line altogether, take the over. Monday night, I've got Chargers at Saints here. The Saints right now, big line on this one, man. 8-point favorites against a Charger football team that was right there with the Bucs last week on the road. Over under is 51.5 on this. When we talked off camera, you said this is kind of the future versus the past. This is Justin Herbert, one of the new faces of the league, potentially with Joe Burrow, against one of the old faces of the league. What's the key matchup in this game for you?
Really, to me, it's going to be Dennis Allen going against a young quarterback. Anytime you get a young quarterback coming in your building and you're a veteran defensive coordinator, you should have certain defenses you're going to show him all the time, right? You're going to have different looks. Okay, is he going to be comfortable with, if we mug the A gaps? Are you going to be comfortable if we bring 8, 9 guys in the box and drop them out? How is he going to react to different looks? Give him something, and that's one thing I always think about with Dick LeBeau. Dick LeBeau always, his record versus young quarterbacks was tremendous. And to me, the really good defensive coordinator, and I do think Dennis Allen is a good defensive coordinator, I think he's going to give a lot of different looks to him. And that's going to normally either going to speed up the process for a young quarterback and he's going to throw it too early, or he'll pat the ball once or 2, 3, 4 times, and now he's holding it in the pocket, and now he gets the sack. So to me, that's the matchup I'm looking for. I'm hoping Dennis Allen does me right and give him a lot of different looks to this young quarterback.
It's interesting watching Herbert when the edge pressure came from Tampa Bay. He's really good at moving around in the pocket. What they call that, agility in a phone booth, where you're able, he doesn't look like that kind of guy because he's so tall, Rod, but he's pretty nimble. And I was really impressed. He reminded me a little bit of the quarterback on the other side, Tom Brady, who's always been great at stepping up, stepping to the side. However, when you mentioned about crowding the A gap, okay, you're talking about having those 2 guys on either end of either side of the nose tackle, basically. Mm-hmm. Pressure up the middle against young quarterbacks, that is hard to deal with. I think they do a lot better against edge pressure than they do when it's right in their face. The problem is if you take away the slants and you put pressure in his face and the Chargers pick it up, he has shown his accuracy on the deep intermediate routes and long ball is pretty doggone good. Now you got a safety out there by himself against the Chargers receivers. It's scary. It's scary. If the Chargers backs can pick up the blitz, do you think Dennis Allen would back off of him a little bit?
I mean, one thing I think, Herbert, one thing he does well is, like you said, it's a natural instinct for him. He'll see the rush coming and he'll just slide over to release the ball.
Just a slide. Yes.
And, guys play their whole lives at that position and can't do that. It's just a natural gift he has. Why he does it, I don't even know if he can say why he does it. It's just a natural thing that he does on a consistent basis. Hopefully he does play well, because my starting receiver on my fantasy team, Keenan Allen. So I need him to have some big numbers. So, I think that, I think Dennis Allen will definitely try to get after him to try to see if he can speed up his process of seeing his routes or his reads. And if he can't speed it up, then you drop 7 into the defense, and then that slows them down. And now hopefully he can pad it. By that time, your front 4 pressure can get to the quarterback.
It's interesting. I mentioned Brady. A lot of people think Tom Brady's maybe the best ever at moving around within the pocket, just within the pocket. Drew Brees has been phenomenal at it. But the guy that I think of, that I thought of when I was watching Herbert, is Dan Marino. Because Marino always got credit for his quick release, but that wasn't all it was. When he hurt his Achilles, Rod, whatever mobility he had was now totally gone. But Dan Marino used to do this little thing where he would just shuffle. He would just shuffle forward or shuffle backwards and flick it. And again, the thing with Marino is he had that intermediate ball accuracy, and Herbert's got it too. He can throw that thing outside the numbers on a dime. I saw him throw a ball to Keenan Allen outside the numbers over the outstretched defensive back. And I thought this guy is a big time talent. I don't think the Chargers win this game, but the Saints being 8-point favorites is a little steep for me. And the over under is 51.5. I think they go over that 51.5. So of the two, I like both of them. I like the Chargers potentially to Chargers in the points, and I like the over-under. I think if I had to lay my money down on one or the other, I'm going to go with over 51.5 points. What do you think? Do the Saints win by 8 points or more?
It's tough for me to say the Saints are going to win by 8, just the way they've played the last couple of weeks. And I think the Chargers, and the more Herbert plays, the more comfortable he should get, the more he should understand. Now, you lose Eckler, right? So you got your number one running back. He's gone. So the question is, can the football, and he doesn't have to throw the ball like a Joe Burrow has to with Cincinnati. I mean, the guy, he has to throw, 60-some times in a game. You don't want your young quarterbacks to do that. So, but the way the Saints have played so far this year just doesn't tell me they can win by that amount. I think that the Saints will win. I think it's going to be by 3. I think it's going to be 20-17. They won't cover.
They won't cover. Okay, so I've got the over. Rod's got the under. The reason I don't want to bet on the Saints or the Chargers, losing by only a field goal or whatever, is because I don't know with Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas is a huge X factor, and we don't know if he's going to play. He had that injury, and he was supposed to be out up to 4 weeks. Well, this would be the 4th week. So for me, I'm going to avoid the line for now, but I wouldn't be mad at you for laying some on the Chargers, because 8 points is steep. And I got to say, Rod, this NFC South, if the Saints win and the Bucs win, the Falcons look terrible right now. And even though Carolina, Teddy Bridgewater played better, I think it's a 2-horse race with these two teams. Yeah. Both of these teams could end up with over 10 wins and contend to be in the Super Bowl.
Well, yeah, I don't know. They can get into the postseason.
You don't think they could get into the Super Bowl?
Not unless they play better. They have to play better. I mean, the way you
can't. Well, who's great in the NFC? Who's great?
Green Bay. Green Bay's looking good.
Okay.
I think, when I think when the 49ers get a couple more pieces back, they're going to be playing better football. Obviously, Seattle is winning games, but the defense doesn't look great. So, I mean, there's the only dominant team to me right now is Green Bay, because they're just playing solid football. Now, their defense is not stunningly great or statistically great, but I still think Aaron Rodgers, man, he looks so good right now, and he doesn't even have all those weapons. And when they come back, it's going to be tough to stop them.
Yeah, I'm with you that Green Bay is the best team. I just think that Tampa Bay and New Orleans are going to be right there, and you never know when a team like Green Bay gets knocked off when they have one bad game. I mean, that year Green Bay was 15-1, and Rodgers was MVP of the league, and the Giants went in there and their front four got after it at Lambeau, and they lost. It happens. But maybe I'm being a little pie in the sky with Tampa Bay and New Orleans, but I'm just saying I don't think they're going to get a whole heck of a lot of competition from within their division. I mean, the Falcons they're lost right now, man. And their secondary is so depleted.
I don't even know.
I almost feel bad for them.
I mean, they give up 341 passing yards a game. That's hard to do. I mean, they give up 34.5 points a game. That's hard to do, man. I mean, that's hard to do when you're playing terrible football, and they are playing terrible football at its best.
It's hard to do on Tecmo Super Bowl. I think the reason this is happening to the Falcons is because they didn't go back to their red helmet like they should have. But, that's a complaint I'll have on another day. But, hey, we went over all the games. There's some interesting ones on here for sure, and we'll, try and stay updated. You follow the game day. They'll keep you updated on what's going on with COVID. But I think it's a good time to close right here. I think you and I should probably talk Sunday after the late afternoon games. What do you think?
I'll see you then, brother.
You bet. All right, everybody, take care. And remember, subscribe. You can like it, or you can comment on anything we had to say. Please disagree with me. I'm wrong sometimes. Talk to y'all later. RUN.